What's up, everybody? Franco here, reporting for Hear Me Out Podcast and Frank Analysis. I want to revisit something that I discussed when I was on as a guest on Big Talk, Little Talk in his live show last week on Friday, when I was on as a guest along with Dennis Potvin and Charles Anderson of the Independent Report. We talked about Kim Iversen and calling out and reminding us about the Hills, the Rising, and how they're corporately owned. You know, a lot of us progressives, a lot of us tend to overlook that fact. We think we have it all figured out just because we don't listen to corporate media on TV with such with much credibility. We look at that with open eyes, and we think that just because there's people on YouTube who are not CNN or MSNBC or Fox News, and they're saying all these nice things about Bernie or Tulsi or Andrew Yang, we tend to overlook the fact that sometimes they're corporately owned, and you can still appreciate and accept some of the objective things that they report on. Such as the Hills, the Rising. They are right on a lot of issues, but you have to take some things that they say with a grain of salt, just because, like Kim Iversen says in this tweet that I'm about to read to you, they're still corporately owned. They're still going to be bound to certain things that they can say, just because they don't want to upset the people that they work for. So let's revisit that tweet for those of you who have not seen it. And she says that, I watch The Hill in the mornings, but you guys do realize they are corporate media with pro-Trump bosses, right? This is why every segment seems like a slam of neo-libs and establishment Democrats. Even though last I checked, the GOP is currently in power. The current economic crisis is largely because of the work of Republicans. Are Dems helping? No. But let's not forget who is actually in power. And let's not forget that if you work for corporate media, your opinions are filtered by whatever makes your bosses happy. It's common for conservative outlets like Fox to support progressives in order to help divide the Democratic Party. I'm hoping the Dems fail, but not because I want Republicans to win. Motive matters. And a point I brought up in Big Talk, Little Talk was that when you look at the videos that the Hills, the Rising puts out, it's true that a lot of them are mainly attacking corporate Democrats like Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, or Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, or Elizabeth Warren. And a lot of that is for the same reason for why news outlets like Fox News does it. They want to prop up Republicans. They want to help Republicans by dividing the Democratic Party. And also, if you look at their videos, they don't really talk much about third parties, at least not enough on how that could be a viable option for the future to help make bigger and stronger. Like how other indie media pundits on YouTube or on Rockfin who are not corporately owned talk about how that's a route that many progressives should take. Many progressives who have left the Democratic Party or who have left a long time ago or who were never a part of it, independents, people who are just sick and tired of the two-party system. You know, I don't think the Hills, the Rising makes that argument at all. If they do, they barely do it. And it's probably because, just like Democrats, Republicans are afraid of a big uprising of a third-party option. The Hill, the news outlet, is owned by James A. Finkelstein, and Finkelstein has a lot of ties with Trump. He is friends with him. Some of those articles are linked in the description on the discussion I had on Big Talk, Little Talk with Israel and everybody who was there. So you can check those sources to verify how James Finkelstein has strong ties to Trump. to Trump. And some things to also keep in mind about what the Hills the Rising does is that they sometimes don't bring in certain guests that could reveal certain truths about what's happening in other countries, because it may not benefit Trump's current cabinet, which has people like Mike Pompeo and the like, because it will paint Donald Trump too much in the bad light. Now, Donald Trump, he does get criticized on the Hill, but it's to a much lesser extent than they criticize corporate Democrats. So shout out to Killer Cam for bringing up this point yesterday when Dennis Potman mentioned how every segment on the Hill that they bash Biden, etc., but not one word about Jesse Ventura or Justin Amash for freaking president against Trump. Well, they did talk about Jesse Ventura, but it was only for like 4 minutes. And Killer Cam points out how I remember when they chose to have on Michael Brooks instead of Max Blumenthal, who actually visited Syria to talk about the Syrian civil war. And all he did was say Bernie is the only candidate 100% right about Syria. Been suspicious ever since. Yeah, like the credentials that Michael Brooks has is just that he's a commentator on YouTube. Meanwhile, Max Blumenthal has been to several countries and see what's happening on the ground. He's been to Syria. He's been to Libya. He's been to Venezuela. So he's witnessed firsthand what's happening. So he could be a pretty objective source, more objective than Michael Brooks, who's just sitting in a studio, and to explain what's happening. No, I'm not saying you can't give good objective journalism just by being in a studio. I'm just saying that when you're on the ground in another country, you're seeing things more you're seeing things more objectively that way. You're witnessing things firsthand rather than just reading it. But with Michael Brooks, he's a very biased actor, and he would fall for a lot of mainstream media corporate smears towards Tulsi Gabbard and Andrew Yang every chance he got, because he thought that it would help Bernie Sanders, but that hurt Bernie Sanders expand a much bigger movement that it needed to be. They also don't invite people on like Taylor Hudak, who's leading the movement to defend Julian Assange. And the Hills, the Rising also bought into these stories about how Julian Assange was trashing the Ecuadorian embassy with his cat peeing everywhere or whatever. And that just wasn't true, according to the people from the Justice for Assange movement. And Steve from the Slow News Day commented on Kim Iversen's tweet, and he said, "We talked to Crystal when we went to DC to hold actions during the first week of Julian Assange's extradition hearing. She lied and gaslit us about being willing to talk about why we were there. She also lied about participating in one of our demonstrations." I also want to mention how Kim Iversen has been to Israel, and she's seen how Palestinians have been treated in Israel, and the Hills, the Rising has never invited Kim Iversen on. Now, it could be, like, I'm just theorizing here, it could be that it's because Trump is pro-Israel, and he has many people in his cabinet that are pro-Israel, and they don't want to paint Donald Trump too much in a bad light by having somebody who firsthand witnessed what's going on in Israel, like Kim Iversen, on their show to talk about it. And they have had people on like Aaron Mate of the Gray Zone, who is so he has strong affiliations with Max Blumenthal, but Aaron Mate was a prominent figure in debunking a lot of myths about the whole Russiagate conspiracy theories that were propped up by corporate Democrats. And Russiagate painted Trump in a bad light. So having somebody on like Aaron Mate wouldn't upset the corporate overlords over at the Hill as much. So Russiagate, the work that Aaron Mate did, even though it was objective and it defends Donald Trump from false accusations of him colluding with Russia, it's still in the end not painting Trump in a bad light, you know? So that could be a reason for why they invite Aaron Mate on. So I want to go back and show you guys what I said when I was on Big Talk Little Talk, the last words I had about this, because I want everybody to keep these things in mind when they watch The Hills the Rising, or when they watch any news in general, whether it be independent or corporately owned.
Right. So there you go, folks. Twitter, right, the Twitter is down there, right down there. That's the Twitter handle. So go ahead and send that over to Dennis. Franco, right. I want to have tag me and I want to have Franco chime in here a little bit on, Crystal Ball's progressive, I guess, credibility, right? Franco arguably coming from more of the progressive wing. Do you think that it was more of? I mean, I don't want to question, Crystal Ball's integrity here or anything, but I think she's an important voice. But the skyrocketing that happened, as soon as they kind of hit YouTube, it was insane. And I think I don't want to buy into the conspiracy or anything like that, but a lot of people refuse. It's all good and dandy when we're criticizing TYT, right? Everybody chimes in on the laugh. We all cheers to our beers, and we say those TYT sellouts raising $22 million out there. We've called it out here on the show. But you look into and investigate a little bit into the Hills the Rising, and no, oh no, God forbid, don't tell us that they're corporate media. Don't tell us that this Finkelstein guy is rubbing shoulders with CBS executives who are accused of raping and sexual harassment. And by the way, guys, what is the story right now with Joe Biden? What is Crystal Ball pushing right now? Oh yeah,
the rape allegations.
Right, rape allegations. I would love Crystal Ball to stick to her integrity, come out and say, one of my executives did rub shoulders with a CBS executive who, by the way, was kicked off of CBS because he was, accused of sexual allegations. So, I mean, I don't know, Franco, why don't you wrap up this segment and let us know your final thoughts on this?
I think it's important to just be wary of them. Like I was saying, even if they're saying the right thing, you still have to be conscious about that and recognize that they are still doing the same things that a lot of us progressives that criticize TYT, the Hill, the Rising are also doing that. So just be conscious of that. You can listen to it with an open mind. Don't just listen to the Hill, the Rising. There's so many other outlets you can listen to. And that's how you build your critical thinking. Go in there with an open mind, aware of what's happening behind the scenes of the Hills, the Rising. Take the information that is objectively true, and then other things you got to question that. Otherwise, you become a sycophant. Don't defend them just because you like them, just because you like Crystal Ball and Sagar's personality. You have to look beyond that.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I agree with that. And
yeah. So I still stand by that. It's important to listen, not just listen to the Hill, but listen to a lot of other indie sources, especially ones that aren't corporately owned, because all these people, they fact check each other. Like one person could be wrong about something, but the other person could have it right. There's nothing wrong with still listening to the Hill. Like I'm not telling you to not listen to them. I still listen to them, but you're doing it, and I'm doing it with a conscious mind, knowing that they're still owned by corporate overlords who may limit some of the things that they say. Just like on Fox News, they're owned by the Murdochs, and some of the things that they say has to appease him. And CNN is owned by Time Warner, so they're not going to say anything that's going to upset them, like Time Warner, like the owners of Time Warner. And MSNBC is owned by Comcast. They're not going to say anything that's going to upset Comcast. So keep those things in mind. I'm not proposing to cancel anybody. You know, when Sagar and Crystal, when they're right on something, they're right. But don't take everything that they say as objectively factual. Thanks for watching that segment of Hear Me Out. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below so you can get the latest on sports, pop culture, and progressive politics. Stay informed.